The following podcast contains spoilers for the Star Wars prequels. You've been warned!
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of KFR News Radio. This is your host, Glen Button, along with your host, Miguel Magusto.
May the 4th be with you, Glen.
And may the 4th be with you.
How you doing?
Oh, God, I'm doing good. I had a whole thing that I was going to do. I'm wearing like a light, kind of like fake hoodie, and then I was going to wear this little blanket that's right here and make it look like I was, a Jedi and be all fucking mysterious. But no, It's too hot. I'm sweating. I don't care for it. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. We have a big episode ahead of us. We watched, the streaming roulette picked Attack of the Clones as Star Wars Episode 2. And we decided, since this is going to be releasing close to May the 4th, we're going to release it on May the 4th and do all 3 prequels.
Yep. Just going to straight run with it.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of just talk about the 2 movies we saw other than the Star Wars movies that we saw together. And then we're going to get into it. First one being Civil War. We, of course, have a review for that up on YouTube. Just a blanket comment on it.
Yeah,
I think we both really liked it.
Maybe we did.
Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. You'll have
maybe
to check
we
it
had
out.
a Civil War of our own.
We definitely appreciated Jesse Plemons, though, of course, also known as Mr. Dunst.
Yeah.
Love and respect and honor to him. So,
in all amounts.
Yes, Glenn. What's the other movie we watched?
Oh my God! Let me tell you about this fucking title. Ungentlemanly Warfare, as they call it, because I don't
the
feel
Ministry
like
of Ungentlemanly Warfare. There you go.
That movie is also up on the YouTube'ly dooblies, and there's a review out for that. Maybe we enjoyed it. I probably didn't. Maybe I did. That's for you to find out. So
you to find out. Yes.
Go check that out as well.
Yes.
Yes.
That's pretty. I watched more. You probably didn't watch more unless it was a TV show or something.
I don't know, but I read more. That's for a fact.
Yeah, I also read. But we're going to just jump right into the Star Wars prequels. Ooh.
Are you sure about this? Trusting our fate to a boy we hardly know?
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I sense much fear in you.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Two Jedi escape a hostile blockade to find allies and come across a young boy who may bring balance to the Force. But the long-dormant Sith resurface to claim their original glory.
Yes, written and directed by George Lucas, starring Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, Natalie Portman, Jake Lloyd, Ian McDiarmid, Pernilla August, and many others. Anthony Daniels, of course, Kenny Baker, Ahmed Best, Frank Oz. All the fun ones. All the fun ones. This, of course, is the first prequel that came out. A lot of people say it's the worst of the prequels, and quite honestly, I beg to differ. We talked about it. We're going to get into it more when we get to the episode in question, but there is one specifically that I said was the worst. But before we get into these episodes, I think many generations can say that Star Wars was part of their childhood. So, Glenn,
Yeah.
what is your Star Wars childhood memories?
I am so glad you asked because I actually have a whole bullet point. I have 3 pages, obviously, for each movie of notes that I made.
3 pages, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, well, not for each movie. 3 pages.
One
1,
page
2,
per
3 for 1 movie, 2 movie, 3 movie.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion.
It's all right.
So, fun fact: the prequels were my introduction to Star Wars.
Really? Okay.
I had never I had known about Star Wars. I know the whole shebang and how uproariously amazing it was to everybody's life. But I had never experienced it. I wasn't really a Star Wars. I wasn't raised into a Star Wars family, shall I say. And my stepdad actually introduced me to Star Wars. He's a big fan of it. So he introduced me probably around 2005, 2006 when this last movie came out. So between him actually introducing me to Star Wars, and he's like, "You never seen Star Wars? There's no way we're gonna change that, goddammit." I was like, okay. Between that and I will say 2 games, one being Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, where you can unlock Jango Fett as like a character to skate as. That being one of the games.
Is it Jango Fett or Boba Fett?
It's Jango.
Okay.
Because it came out like the same time Tony Hawk 4 came out. You can unlock Jango as a playable character, and obviously hot take, probably the best Star Wars game of all time, Star Wars Battlefront 2. That game had me in a fucking chokehold for the longest time. Still, to this day, we watched the whole series here, and I immediately was like, I want to play fucking Battlefront right now. I have it emulated. I have it downstairs on the PlayStation right now. I have it everywhere. I want to play it. It's got me. Fucking, I'm ready. But yeah, that was pretty much my introduction to Star Wars. Late in the game, after the last movie came out.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool. Sometimes I forget that, what are you, 3 or 4 years younger than me? Mm-hmm. The earlier in our lives we get, the bigger that gap feels.
Yeah.
Because 3 years when you're, 5 when episode 1 came out versus 8 or 9 or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. That's a big difference in for lack of a better word, maturity. Obviously, I was not a mature 9-year-old, but it's just I can't remember a time I didn't know about Star Wars. Obviously, it exists, but even before episode 1 came out, my dad is not a huge Star Wars fan, but he was 22 when the first one came out.
Yeah.
So he kind of, went into that whole
phase
where, it was the biggest movie ever at the time that it came out.
That's crazy because he's a big Dune fan.
he likes sci-fi in general.
Yeah.
This is going to sound really pretentious. I think Star Wars might be a little too dumb for what he loves. He likes it, but he really likes like the more, political aspects of it.
I mean, there's definitely subsections of like sci-fi fans.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's not to say he doesn't like it because, my earliest memories of this is he had the VHS 3-pack. Mm-hmm. It had Darth Vader.
Yep.
Yoda, and I forget who else was on it. Maybe Jabba the Hutt? I can't remember.
Of the original ones?
Yeah, I have them upstairs. But anyway, we would watch them every Friday night. We would watch one of them, and for like at least 2 months, put them on repeat. And then they were released. George Lucas, of course, remastered them, aka ruined them, and released them into theaters. It's just, it was in the 90s building up to episode 1. It was just a constant presence. And that's my first memory. And then when episode 1 came out, I was obsessed with it. Obviously, a lot of the older audiences hated episode 1 for the same reason that their parents hated Return of the Jedi, which is that they realized, hey, these movies are kind of made for kids. And that's not to shut them aside, but George Lucas, when he signed his deal with it, wanted more money from the toys than he wanted from directing it. So of course they're gonna make it for kids, and I think people forget that. So they go like really hard on them. Yeah. Specifically, Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks, and this one with Jar Jar Binks in that.
Oh yeah.
Now, is that hate warranted? To an extent, I would say, to an extent, it is warranted. Last week, I said George Lucas is a hack. I'm not the first person to say that. I disagree with the reasons people do say it.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that he has horrible ideas, and the big thing is A New Hope was saved in the edit. True to an extent, but George Lucas was in the editing process the whole time. The way I think he's a hack is I think he's really great at big ideas, but shit at smaller details, which is why every time he remasters his movie, he ruins it by adding smaller details. Like he's great at the broad scheme of things, and then where the prequels fall short is that he was so big. And these were such big movies. There's a documentary about the behind the scenes of The Phantom Menace, and you could tell people are afraid to tell him that it is a horrible idea what he's saying. Like there's this one part where they're talking about Jar Jar Binks.
He's the key to it all.
Yeah, I don't hate Jar Jar Binks. I think he is an annoying character now that I'm older. I liked him when I was a kid because I was a kid.
Yeah.
He kind of just gets in the way now, in my opinion. But he was written for kids. And but like in the documentary, the behind the scenes documentary, George Lucas is like, he's the key to it all. If we get him right, we get the movie right.
Jar Jar is a key to all this. If we get Jar Jar working, because he's a funnier character than we've ever had in any of the movies before.
And you could just tell people are just like wanting to say something, but it's George Lucas, so they keep their mouth shut. They don't tell him no.
They're all like, is he though?
And so while I will admit, hack is a strong term to call him, but I do kind of feel that way because in my opinion, hacks are people who think they know better than other people and will not listen to other people. That's not to say he wouldn't have listened to them if they said something, but I think A New Hope is such a success because he collaborated with people, and then Empire Strikes Back, he was not the director. He didn't even write the script. He came up with the story, and I believe it was a film teacher of his that he hired to direct it. Everyone highly considers it the best one made, Empire Strikes Back. And then he was more involved in Return of the Jedi. Still didn't direct it, but still more involved with the screenwriting process and the creation process. And that's not to say he wasn't for Empire Strikes Back, but like he kind of took more of the reins back with Return of the Jedi. So it's just, in my opinion, and he probably would admit this because he didn't direct between A New Hope and Phantom Menace because he hated the stress of directing. I don't think he's a good director. I think he's a fantastic producer.
Yeah.
And he's a fantastic story. Like he's good at writing treatments. Like he came up with the idea of Indiana Jones with Steven Spielberg.
Like you said, he's a great idea guy.
Yeah, when it comes to the little details, his weirdness gets in there. And that's not to say that, he shouldn't be that way. But there's many interviews where Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill are just like, no one talks like that, George. Yep. Like, what are we doing? And, they changed the line or whatever. And he kind of... My biggest problem with the prequels rewatching them is the dialogue. Anyway, so that's my rant about George Lucas. I don't hate him as much as I made it seem last time. You know me. I speak in hyperbole a lot because it's fun. But I do think that he deserves some of the praise he gets, but also deserves some criticism. Now, getting back into The Phantom Menace, I personally believe that this overall is the best one of the prequels. I know a lot of people are going to come at me and say Revenge of the Sith. I agree Revenge of the Sith is really strong, but as far as telling the story it wanted to tell without it getting in the way, I think Phantom Menace is a more enjoyable movie. Maybe not necessarily better. Maybe that wasn't the right word, but it's more enjoyable in my opinion. The Phantom Menace. And then Revenge of the Sith is better. We're going to get into that later. But when I was a kid, I think it came out. When did this come out? In May?
99.
No, like what month? May of 99?
Let's find out together, shall we? May 19, 1999.
Okay, yeah. So May 99 is when it came out. I remember seeing it in California with my cousins, and we usually visited them in July. I probably also saw it in May. Who knows? I don't remember. But ever after that, I was just obsessed. I got like the novelization of it. I got a Darth Maul inflatable chair.
Yeah, my man was going out.
I got the video game for PlayStation, which I could never get past level 4. And it was just, it was just, and, I never felt like the original Star Wars trilogy was, for lack of a better word, mine. Like, a lot of people take ownership of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Episode 1 was the first one I was just like, I love this. This is mine. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. 2 years later, I became more of a Lord of the Rings fan, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, look at that.
No. But yeah, I absolutely loved it at first. And then every subsequent viewing, I like it a little less each time. I think it's just because of, noticing the flaws. But this still has one of the strongest fight scenes in all of Star Wars, with the Duel of the Fates, obviously.
Yep.
And
straight up antagonist, period.
Yeah, Darth Maul. Biggest mistake, I think he agrees too, that George Lucas ever made was killing off Darth Maul. I could be wrong about that. I don't recall if he said that or if I'm mixing things up. But absolutely infatuated with Darth Maul. On a cross-country trip to California one time, I wrote a script and with Darth Maul in it. Like, I wrote, I was like 9 or 10 years old, I think, and I wrote a script, and he was the antagonist. I don't remember anything about it, except for
just know that he was badass, whatever he was doing.
But yeah, I just, I love it. I had the pod racer game on N64. So this was like a big cultural thing for me, growing up. It was a big nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
And the veil of nostalgia has been slowly revealed. And
that also happens when you get older.
Yeah,
for sure.
I still really like it, but the dialogue is horrible. It's horrendous. It's the first thing that made me realize that George Lucas should never touch a script ever again. Touch dialogue ever again.
Yeah.
Love his ideas. His dialogue needs some tweaking.
Amen to that.
Anyway, I've been talking for like 20 minutes.
No, it's quite okay. I want to backtrack a little back to when you said that pod racing game. That's one of the games too that we crack open a cold one, bad boy. That
we're not brought to you by Coke Zero.
When my neighbor actually, I think when I lived in like my first original development, my neighbor actually had that pod racing game. I think it was for N64. If it was still,
the one I had was N64. I don't know if it was on multiple platforms.
He had an N64, so I mean that would make sense.
Yeah,
I remember him playing that game. I never played it myself, but yeah. So it's hard for me to straight up talk about memories, at least of the prequels, because I didn't really have many until around probably 2005.
That's wild to me. That is wild to me. Like, you're not that much younger than me, but the fact that you went that long without seeing it.
I mean, we just weren't necessarily a Star Wars family. My dad wasn't really big into sci-fi. Obviously, my mom actually, I think she hates Star Wars because, my stepdad loved it so much. She's like, oh my God.
I was going to say, I've never heard you talk about your stepdad before. I'm guessing he's not around anymore.
Not too much. I mean, I see him, but
that's
a whole different therapy session. Yeah. But he's the one who got me into it. He's actually, it was a weird transition point. Here's a therapy session for you, where my mom was dating somebody, and then this was months later, she moved on to somebody else. And I was still like hooked on that last boyfriend. I was like, oh yeah, this guy I looked up to, and then I didn't want to look up to the other guy. And we had like no common ground on like what we had in common, obviously. And then he shows me this. We're best friends for the rest of our lives. Congrats on that. But yeah, my dad was never into like Star Wars or mostly any sci-fi stuff in general. So I just it was never introduced to me besides passing by people playing the games or something like that. So it was crazy. But I think even when the movies dropped, Darth Maul was the most badass thing I had ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Even without seeing the movies, didn't have to. that guy was fucking cool as shit. And he had the dual lightsaber, the bow staff. That was fucking awesome. I still to this day, my jaw dropped. I didn't fucking watch the movies, but I was like, oh, this guy's got regular swords. This guy's got a fucking bow staff. Whoa. Mind blown as a kid.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
But, to this day, being the prequels, I mean, really meant something to me, even though I watched them so much later. I finally correlated to them at a later age than I was more than likely supposed to.
Yeah.
But it meant so much to me because there was a relationship build with it. So it wasn't just like me as a kid watching it. It was me bonding with my stepfather about it and us actually hitting common ground.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that Star Wars has going for that. It's such a staple in culture in general, not even just American culture, it's just worldwide culture that so many generations have bonded over. Like my dad and I had bonded over a lot of things, but one of my earliest memories is us watching Star Wars and me being excited for Friday night to watch Star Wars with him. So it's a beautiful thing. You got to commend George Lucas for that.
Yeah.
And this movie, this time around, because I knew we were going to talk about it, I was really trying to figure out why I don't think it works. And, a lot of people talk about like the midichlorians, and it went from the Force being something spiritual to being something scientific. I didn't really care that much because I was a child and didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. What was always funny to me with the midichlorians was like, I had no idea what the fuck they were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, why the fuck are we talking about pools? What's going on with the chlorine?
That's where I was going with this. Where like I think the good joke, by the way. I'm sorry to just brush over
that was literally
joke.
what I thought as a child. I was like, why the fuck are we talking about pools?
I thought you were making a pun.
No.
But my biggest takeaway this time is that I think George Lucas, when I say he gets in his own way, is that all of his dialogue is so expositionary. And it shows with like the opening scroll, which I don't have a problem with. No one really has a problem with, but it's just his stories are more complex than a 2-hour movie will allow, and to a fault. Like I think it's even too complex for an entire series. So when
there's a lot of lore to it.
Yeah, and I love the lore, I love the world, with the exception of the fake languages he creates, which sound fake. It's not like it sounds like a kid going booga shuga dooga wooga.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's Huttese for something. But he's so worried about things. It feels like I don't know him. I haven't spoken to him, so I could be off on this. He's so worried about his movies not being understood that he writes really clunky, boring dialogue to explain what is happening. And at times, it can create the best moments in a movie. That happens later in Revenge of the Sith. But in episode 1, it just gets in its way because everyone just wants the story to progress. But, they have Liam Neeson check Anakin's blood and just be like, oh, he's got a high midichlorian count, highest I've ever seen, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. No one cares about that. No one. Talk about the prophecy.
You know what I care about that specific scene, at least? Is how badass he made talking on the phone seem with his little Jedi phone.
Oh, yeah. They always had their arms crossed. And
yeah, he always just seemed so badass. No other Jedi seemed as badass when talking on their little Jedi phone as Liam Neeson did. He's like, yeah, that fucking kid is something, man. I don't know.
Can I just tell you how? So this is my mind. Whenever I saw a movie as a kid and I liked a character in it, I'm like, man, I really hope that actor gets more work.
Yeah,
I thought that about Liam Neeson, not knowing that he was in like Schindler's List, Darkman, whatever else the hell he was in that I don't know at the time. But I was just like, I really hope he gets more work. He's really good.
Yeah. Well,
not realizing that he got Star Wars because he already has a really good career.
Look at him now. A. B.
Yeah.
This was my first Liam Neeson movie as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had no idea who he was, but it paved the road for me.
Yeah. So it's if you get past the dialogue, and yes, past Jar Jar being annoying, past Jake Lloyd being annoying, not his fault. He's a child actor. That's George Lucas's fault for not directing him well enough.
Yeah, that's
or
what's crazy to me,
miscasting
though.
him.
I understand the hatred for Jar Jar, especially now as an adult.
Not the actor. Not the actor.
Not the actor.
Because
That's not
the
his
actor,
fault.
the actor was cyberbullied and harassed so much because of Jar Jar that he thought about killing himself. That's not fucking cool.
Luckily, he's had a second coming. And has been rewarded for being a loyal person to Star Wars by having a new role. But I never understood the Jake Lloyd getting so much shit. Like, yeah, he was a little bad, but he wasn't.
He's a child.
Yeah, he wasn't absolutely terrible. He played
Back
the role
then,
of a kid acting as a kid.
The problem is George Lucas doesn't know how kids act.
Yeah.
The hate that came for Jake Lloyd was just too fucking much. Like, he's a child actor. Child actors weren't good back then. If you've seen the original It, pretty much Goonies was the only movie where the child actors were good. And that's because they weren't acting. They were just dicking around the whole time.
And Stand By Me, too.
And Stand By Me, yeah. Well, those guys were all just like, I think they were professionally trained. But
Most of the top of their line as kids.
Yeah, most of the time when movies get child actors back then, not so much now, is just, they just pick someone out of. They did a mass audition and people took their kids to these auditions and just got lucky. And now there's like a funnel from professional training into it. But yeah, he's like, everything wrong with the character of Anakin is the writing, not Jake Lloyd himself. Like, he did the best he could with what he had, which wasn't much. Like, who says yippee? Who says yippee, George? I want to know. Did you say yippee as a child? Because that explains a lot if you did.
Honestly, he probably did.
He probably did, yeah. But I mean, it's not even just Jake Lloyd's character. His friends have terrible writing too, and also just the creepiness of Padme and Anakin. See, when I saw Phantom Menace, my dad being kind of big into Star Wars, I knew Anakin was going to become Darth Vader. Hell, it was part of the promotions, the posters. So when people tell me, "Oh, when you were a kid in 2005 and realized that Anakin became Darth Vader," it's like, you didn't know that going into Episode 1?
Yeah,
like that's kind of this is the Vader origin story. But yeah, it's just frustrating that so many people hate on Jake Lloyd for the wrong reasons. And
yeah, I don't. The problems with this movie
I haven't even gotten into my notes.
Yeah, I mean, I've been slicing through them just a little bit, but I haven't even gone through them for sure. I for sure think the problems with this movie are not in his hands.
Yeah,
I think
not at all.
I think for sure what made this movie not great in comparison to maybe the other ones, even though I think you did say this. Which one was your favorite? This one?
My favorite is this one.
Yeah. Oh, you said the most enjoyable, this one.
Yes, and that my favorite and the most enjoyable is the same thing.
I think
for me in this case. But Revenge of the Sith is better, I will admit that.
Yeah, I think the things that make this not at least enjoyable for me now as a 31-year-old, at the time of watching this back in 2005, wasn't as big as a problem, is for sure, I think, obviously the dialogue. The guns and Jar Jar are probably what weigh it down some of the worst.
Gungans, not Gungans. Gungans.
Gungans. That was pretty close.
I think.
Whatever.
I'm doubting myself now.
No, you might be right. Yeah, the Gungans. I didn't look it up. I just said yeah.
I mean, Jar Jar, Gun, I get it.
Yeah, it happens. They go bang bang sometimes too.
Also, Jar Jar totally calls Natalie Portman hot in this. I don't know if you noticed it.
I didn't. She's 14 in that, apparently.
Yeah, her and Anakin have like a moment before the pod
no, he's like,
racing.
Misa thinks she hot.
Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah,
it's like Jesus Christ, George, come on.
yeah. Yeah, I had to look up what the age was in between Annie, and apparently he was 9 and she was 14.
Yeah.
So like 5 years, it's not that bad, but as kids, it's a little bad. And then.
Well, the biggest problem is, in Attack of the Clones, which we'll get into in a minute, is that she knew him as... The problem is she knew him as a young kid.
Yes.
That's where it gets weird for me personally.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like 10 years passed into the next movie, and then he's 19 and she's 24. Girl, you're 24. You're a queen. Well, you were a queen, and then you became a Senate, which is a whole thing we'll get into.
So the queen is elected? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Queen. Okay. Sorry. Go on.
Which is a whole different thing that we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But then they were 19, 24. Girl, you're busy. What are you doing messing with this guy? Stop it. He's a little baby with a little rat tail. Leave him. Also, do you know how many people had rat tails back then?
Too many.
At least like when the second movie came out, there's way too many. I can't. There was at least 4 kids that I know when I went to school with that they had the rat tails after this movie. Why'd you do that to your kids? Why'd you let them do that? But yeah, I mean, it's going back. I think the biggest problems aren't Jake Lloyd. I think it's many other things.
A lot of the problems for me are technical. Like a shocking amount of dialogue in episode 1 is ADR'd. When it doesn't make sense. Like it would be a closed set and they ADR the line. Like, George, you run Skywalker sound. Why is your production sound so bad if you run Skywalker sound? It doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Now, in subsequent films, it got better, but it was always just there, just like the most random ADR. And honestly, after Christopher Nolan, I don't think dialogue is that important.
The only one that made sense for the ADR was Ray Park, obviously not delivering his own lines. He mouthed the words, but they had a different, I forget the actor's name.
He's in Shaun of the Dead, I know that much.
But he had a different voice actor for playing Darth Maul, but Ray Park was at least like the physical role. But yeah, other than that, so it was very weird. So I remember you text me like, this fucking movie, man.
Yeah, the ADR just drove me insane. Like, it would be an obviously closed set, and it would be a close-up, which is like, you should never have ADR in a close-up because it should be really easy to get high-quality sound in a close-up. It's usually when it's further away that it becomes a problem. And every single line in a scene was ADR'd. And it wasn't just, like, if it was just Jake Lloyd, I would understand, maybe his voice changed halfway through production and they had to redo a lot of his scenes.
Yeah, or the way Natalie Portman performed that
it was Natalie Portman, it was Liam Neeson, it was Ewan McGregor, it was every single person. I'm like, what the hell are we doing, George? You're supposed to be good at sound and you're not even good at sound.
He's got the idea of sound. Leave him alone, man.
He's great at the idea of sound. I don't want to spend too much more time on this. I know we kind of talked a lot about just our experience with it, but overall, I think it's good. Obviously, it's got one of the best songs in all of Star Wars, Duel of the Fates. John Williams, of course.
Which he put his whole pussy into.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that. Yes,
I had to say
it. But yeah, I think I understand a lot of people's hate for this. It was the first prequel movie, what was it, 13 years in between, 15 years, something like that. And you're excited and you go to see it and it's disappointing. I've been there, so I understand it. But like the hate that some of the actors get because of it is just too much. And I think everything wrong with the prequels is George Lucas's fault. Don't hate on anyone other than George Lucas because of it. But great ideas. Just great horrible dialogue and horrible ADR. Never do that much ADR, George.
I have a bunch of bullet points that I'm going to
if you want to go through them real quick.
Blast through. You'll probably agree with some of them. Viceroy the guy that was in basically the whole trilogy.
A little racist?
Yeah, he sounded like a South Park Asian man. And that was a little rough. I'm like, wow, how did that? I guess okay, we're just gonna let that happen. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon going or swimming through the underwater city and then opening through the gate and then they're completely dry. I thought that was fucking hilarious. To this day, Qui-Gon is still my favorite Jedi.
Same here.
I mean,
so mad.
obviously Obi-Wan's like fucking right there, but Qui-Gon's awesome. He was just so cool. He had so much great potential. And they killed him off maybe a little too early for me. Maybe just a little too early. Which I'll probably talk about here in my next two notes. The next two movie notes. I wish they lingered on the drama of like Annie and his mother kind of separating away. Because
it was too clean.
It was too clean. Like it's just like she's like, go take care of my son. And he's like, I don't want to go, Mom. And then that was kind of mostly it. It just felt like they could have lingered on it more of like a I don't know. It could have been more dramatic. Could have been more tear jerking in ways. I wish that it was. This we'll talk about for sure in the future. The Jedi Council is Anakin's biggest hater to this day. And if Qui-Gon hadn't died, he probably never would have went to the dark side. That's a big if, but
we'll get into that.
We'll get into that for sure. I like how Jar Jar said that he had this grand army, and then when the battle actually came, it was just everybody kind of standing around throwing rocks. And speaking of rocks, not a single rock in the whole valley that they're fighting in. It looked like a Windows screensaver.
Yeah, for real. That's I understand he wanted to push boundaries with how much blue screen and green screen he used, but the technology was not there at the time. It's still not even there now, which is why they kind of went back to rear. It's not rear projection, but the thing that they use in the like the Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's kind of
like rear projection, but a lot better. I forget what they I think it's called the Hive. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember personally.
It's something but yeah, that technology is a lot better than CGI. And I know that technically is CGI, but the way it's utilized is a lot better than just straight blue screen CGI.
It's a lot more realistic to attend.
Yeah, like of course they didn't have that back then. I would have just rather they did what they did with the original trilogy. Have normal places.
Yeah. The Darth Maul entrance and the fight with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon is absolutely mint crisp, baby.
Except for what the fuck are those force field doors for? Like, what is the point of them?
I don't.
But other than that, I'm willing to overlook that.
Also, how badass is Qui-Gon for just being like, I guess I'll meditate, and then we know what happens to him after.
Would have been more badass if he won the fight. But
yeah. I definitely want to get into that in the next episode here. Ray Park is absolutely iconic for his choreography as Maul. He did a great job physically acting, not just the choreography. Fun fact, when Jar Jar kicked... this is a little joke I had. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, fun fact, when Jar Jar kicked the droid's head, he actually broke a toe. Oh, he didn't.
Is that real?
That was just
the Lord of the Rings joke?
Just the Lord of the Rings joke.
Yes.
Because when Aragorn kicks the helmet and fucking breaks his toe. Anyway, the Ascension guns are the corniest thing I've ever seen.
Yep.
Maul played with his food too much and forgot how to block. And then this is my last one. Here's another sentimental thing, like with Annie and his mom. I hated that Qui-Gon didn't have like a peaceful funeral, that everybody was just talking about subplots and shit instead of just having like this sentimental like breakdown of just this leader, this man that just is pushing the plot forward.
Yeah, definitely.
I hated that. They're like, this man's burning in front of us. Hey, so what should we do about Annie? I don't know. Annie, you're my brother now. I'm your master. No, I didn't like that. There was a time and place, and that wasn't the place.
Yeah.
Or the time. That's all I got. We can move on. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Let's get into Attack of the Clones, Episode 2. Ooh.
You must join me, Obi-Wan, and together we will destroy the Sith.
The dark side clouds everything. In grave danger you are. Begun this Clone War has.
10 years after initially meeting, Anakin Skywalker shares a forbidden romance with Padme Amidala, while Obi-Wan Kenobi discovers a secret clone army crafted for the Jedi.
Yes. Directed by George Lucas, written by George Lucas and Jonathan Hales, starring Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman, Ewan McGregor, Christopher Lee, Samuel L. Jackson, and everyone else that we mentioned beforehand. This was the first. This was the one that came up in Streaming Roulette, and I said that it's my least favorite Star Wars movie ever, and that remains the same
To this day!
To this day. It's got some of the worst dialogue that George Lucas has ever written. For instance, let's see if I can find it.
He doubled down this one.
Obi-Wan calls him my very young apprentice like 10,000 times. He was a thesaurus guy. There's one line that Anakin, and it's not the sand line, as stupid as that is.
I probably wrote it down too.
Let's see. Well, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that it's a romance. Everyone that follows this podcast or us in general knows I don't really care for romance. So it takes one of the things I like and adds something that I don't like, which is romance, and makes it boring and stupid and creepy.
Well, he
because
made it,
Padme knew him as a child.
That too, but he definitely made it with the dialogue boring, stupid, and creepy because it turned Shakespeareic, and he
attempted Shakespeare. Let's give the bard some credit. He's better at dialogue than George Lucas is.
I don't know. He was going for like some Romeo Juliet type shit, and it just wasn't working the way they were delivering it.
Now I will say that
they couldn't deliver it correctly. It's just impossible.
He gets better in episode 3, but Hayden Christensen in episode 2 is horrible.
Yeah.
He's better in 3, but episode 2, I don't know if it was his first movie or something, but he was just absolute dog shit. Again, probably the writing in George Lucas, but
I think it was definitely those two things for sure.
Because the writing in 3 is a little bit better, not a lot better, but a little bit better, and I think he just knew the story more than it kind of felt like he thought that Padme might have been creepy.
See,
he was looking at her like he was creepy the whole time.
Definitely been in some stuff before the first episode.
Also, how does Padme, a senator, previous queen, not see the giant red fucking flag that Anakin Skywalker is?
Oh yeah. Well, because
he does.
Love makes you blind. Okay?
No, not that blind.
Come on.
Everything he does.
I don't know. It made him pretty fucking blind this whole series.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's not believable.
No, I know.
if this happened in real life, it'd be like, man, he must have like massive dick or something because she's just ignoring everything.
It was the rat tail, man. It was the rat tail.
Oh, the rat tail. Yeah. Gotta love that rat tail. I'm still trying to find that line. I thought I wrote it down, but I guess I didn't.
Honestly, I thought I had 2 lines that I wrote. I only have the one where it's where Anakin just uses the Force when he's like I think he's giving the fruit to Padme. He's like, "Oh, if Obi-Wan caught me doing this, motherfucker, you're using the Force." All the Jedi do it.
Yeah,
they literally just do the most mundane thing. They getting their lightsabers constantly.
I can't. Maybe it was in episode 3 of the line. Oh yeah, it was in episode 3. So we'll get into it.
There you go.
But that's not to say that there's not bad dialogue in this. Just not that any that I thought was bad enough to write down.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
There's one piece of trivia I saw that was just like in the scene after Obi-Wan fights Jango Fett hits his head getting into this the spaceship. This was done on purpose. Like, yeah, no shit, it was done on purpose. The entire thing's CGI. The entire thing's CGI.
Yep.
You can't accidentally make someone hit their head in CGI. and of course it was a nod to A New Hope, which is a cool piece of trivia, but like the way that person, this is more of just that person writing the trivia. It's like, yes, the whole thing's CGI. Of course it was done on purpose.
It's like, come on, guy.
Yeah, I think the thing about this one, other than the romance, is that it's unequivocally the most boring of them all. It's so slow paced. That's in part because of the romance. There's that chase scene in the beginning with the assassin, which is boring in itself.
Yeah.
Like it's not an exciting chase scene, and then after that, it's like I think it's like 30 minutes until the next bit of action. Not that there needs to be action, but like everything else that's happening needs to be interesting.
Well, they had a good
exposition scene after exposition scene.
Yeah, they had a good potential. I found the quote that I wrote down. I never put quotations for it, but since we're already talking about that assassination scene, she covered the cameras. I don't think she liked me watching her. So I'm gonna.
Yeah,
so
red flag.
The good thing is I can sense anything going on in that room.
Then why do you have cameras?
Yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, that'll put her mind at ease, especially since he said it so loud. But anyway, going back to the assassination scene, they had such good potential to like introduce this new kind of not necessarily big bad, but next bad character, kind of like Darth Maul. With Django, but instead he just hires another assassin to assassinate the queen, or Padme, I should just say. I don't know if she transferred at this point already. I forget already.
I think she is a senator.
He hired an assassin to assassinate when it could have been like this cool scene where, you know, it was Django fighting Annie and Obi after he failed attempt. Like it would have been super cool. It could have did this build up of all the cool shit he can do. I mean, obviously you kind of do that later, but it's not necessarily as good as it could have been right off the riff. First 20 minutes of the movie of just how badass Django was. Super missed opportunity for me. Very upset about that. Still love Django with all my heart. I like him more than Boba, but that's a hot take as well.
I am indifferent because he's not in the movies. I know he's in TV shows and books and all that. He's not significant enough in any of them.
He's also the first. I saw him before I saw Boba Fett, so of course I like him. He was the first one I was introduced to.
Okay, so your stepdad made you watch the prequels first?
Yeah.
The fuck is wrong with him?
Well, it was chronological order.
That's not how you watch Star Wars.
Well, that's how I watch Star Wars.
That's not how you watch Star Wars.
Well, also, to be fair, Battlefront 2 was out, and it mostly delved from the prequels. And I mean, you could play both in the series, like both.
That's not how you watch Star Wars, though. I'm going to find your stepdad, and I'm going to give him a piece of my mind.
Go ahead and give him.
No, this. A lot of the problems I have with this are, again, technical. There's still a lot of ADR. There's scenes of Obi-Wan. By the way, in this movie, someone has told me that I look like a fat version of Ewan McGregor in this movie, which is the best compliment I've ever gotten. And I'm not joking. Like, I'm actually flattered by the fact that I disagree highly with it, but I'm flattered that someone thought that. But there is a few shots where it was obviously a pickup shot after they had wrapped principal photography, because Obi-Wan Kenobi's beard is so fake in the close-up. And whenever there's a huge high budget movie and there's something that looks that fake in it, it just drives me insane. It's kind of like, and the not the Snyder Cut Justice League, the theatrical release of Justice League, when they CGI'd
the Whedon version.
The Whedon version, the Henry Cavill's mustache. It's just, why? And it's never as good as it could be.
Yeah.
Because there are people that do it better like a week later on their own like personal computer, and I don't understand why the shots that they had were so important that you wanted to put a fake beard on Ewan McGregor and make it a bad fake beard too.
No idea.
But yeah, somehow the effects are worse than episode 1 in my opinion. Not all of them. Some of them are really
2?
good, but. Episode 2 effects are worse than the episode 1 effects.
There you
Sometimes they're really good, but other times it's just horrible.
No, a lot of the effects just went straight down. I don't know. I don't know why. The budget, I have a note for on the next page, but I'll just say it now. You know exactly where all the budget went for these movies. It went right into the third movie. Because this one did not have much going for it as far
that
as...
That has some scenes that look horrible, too.
Yeah.
It still looks better overall than the other two movies, but it looks bad.
But yeah, this one's pretty rough, especially any fight scenes or anything like that.
But like, it's so boring that one of the more important scenes is Obi-Wan going to the library. Mm-hmm. Like, that's an important scene that we decided to keep in a movie. That he goes to a library.
Yeah, man, he's got to read up, man.
It's just no. I understand needing the information, but he could have done it in a more exciting way than going to the library. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I like anything about this one.
This one's...
I really don't. Other than someone said I look like a fat version of Ewan McGregor. That's the only thing I like about this version.
This one's rough. There's so many, I feel like, contradictions with this one. And it's a hard watch for multiple reasons. The dialogue isn't good. The CGI is not good. There's just a lot. Like
this also started with George Lucas getting a little too crazy with how much he makes Yoda talk like Yoda.
Yeah.
Like if you watch the original trilogy, Yoda speaking like Yoda is like, oh, that's quirky. And in this, and especially episode 3, you're just like, it takes you a second to realize what he was actually saying.
Yep, you gotta piece half the sentences together.
And
you're
he forces it too much. He forces the grammatical structure of Yoda's sentences way too much in this in episode 3.
Yeah, a lot of the contradictions too. I'm trying to go through these bullet points. I never understood how Palpatine hid his dark force powers from the Jedi Council. Like, is he just that force sensitive? Like, he's just that good at the force that he could just blanket it completely?
That's the only explanation I can think of, but that's a lazy explanation if you ask me.
Yeah, that's a whole Jedi Council, whole Jedi Temple, and he could just blanket it with ease. Yes, the Sith, what I know about it, I'm sure Star Wars people will help us here. Yeah. I know that the Sith are like as strong as they can be given whatever ailment they want, like, you know, pain, anger, jealousy, anything like that. But that good at whatever it is kind of crazy to me. Another contradiction in this movie is, you know, how much everybody didn't want Anakin on there to be anything going on with Jedi involvement. And then in this movie, they're like, yeah, okay, Anakin, what's going on, man? Yeah, get on in. What's going on? How you doing? And he's literally way worse now than he was as a kid. Like, yeah, they could sense, like, you know, some of these things going on with him, but now he's showing it full force. They're like, we're going to ignore what you just did there. You got a mission to go to, buddy. Get on in there.
Yeah. You got to go protect this senator.
and here's another thing with Anakin being the chosen one that he's going to bring balance to the Force. Is the balance to the Force because there's so few Sith and there's so many Jedi that his whole thing is that he was going to kill all the Jedi to bring balance, and like now there's so little Jedi and now there's so little Sith? Is that how he was supposed to bring balance to the Force?
I have no idea.
I'm sure somebody's going to help us, and they're going to be like, how do you not know this? Listen,
now,
man.
I could be wrong. In the prequel, or in the original trilogy, there are 2 Jedi still living, Obi-Wan and Yoda.
Yep.
And then Yoda dies, and then there's Luke.
Yep. Because I know...
I could be wrong if that's what he means by the balance, is that there's 2 and 2.
Yeah, I know that there's only ever allowed... Well, nature allows 2 dark side, like Sith.
Yeah.
I know that's always been a thing. But how is it... So, you know, I don't know.
That's my biggest problem with sci-fi in general, is that too much of the knowledge of it requires you to consume everything about it.
Yeah.
Like people have argued with me about things when I say things about the movies, and they're just like, well, in the novelizations, it's like, well, we're not talking about the novelizations, are we? These are two different mediums, sir.
Yeah, well,
like I shouldn't have to read a book to enjoy a movie. That's
well,
not how that's not how it works.
So, like, Darth Maul was obviously a Sith. He got killed off.
Yeah.
I had to look it up. I had to look up if Dooku was a Sith. And technically he wasn't, but also he was. So then he died. And then Grievous popped up, but also Dooku and Grievous were around when Maul was around. So that was 4 of them hanging around. It's not like they just became Siths at that very moment.
It's almost as if George Lucas makes shit up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it hurts my brain. Like,
yeah.
Like, yes, you could say, yes, he wasn't technically a Sith at that time, but also he kind of is. They're all on the dark side.
But yeah, I mean, George Lucas just makes things up, which, I mean, it's his story. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But he does things that, like, writes himself into a corner. Like, in episode 3, he says only the Sith deals in absolutes, which in itself is an absolute. The way it's phrased is an absolute. Do or do not, there is no try. That is an absolute. He just contradicts himself all the time. One of the things that I saw about episode 1 is someone, or about the entire prequel trilogy, someone was legitimately questioning, did George Lucas rewatch the original trilogy before writing this one? Because it seems like he didn't. Down to, like, the timing of it all, where, like, the Death Star is being made a couple months after Luke and Leia are born. And then, like, 20 years goes by. Yes, it's fathomable that it takes 20 years to build the Death Star.
Did you see how far they got in the third movie?
They got really far.
They got really far.
Yeah, and then less time happens between A New Hope and in Empire Strikes Back, is it the second Death Star that they were already making? I can't remember.
To be honest, I don't know.
But either way, it's made really fast. I don't know if that's the second one. If it is, please tell me down below in the comments. But I can't remember. But if it's not a second one that was already being built, they build it so much faster than they did the first one, if you go off of the timing of the end of episode 3 into A New Hope. But yeah, he just contradicts himself a lot. I did find that line that I hate, by the way.
Oh, tell me.
During one of their romantic scenes, Padme goes, "I've been dying a little bit each day since you came back into my life.
Yeah.
I love you." What the fuck does that mean? Why are you dying just because he's around?
She wants to be with him so bad, but they can't live a lie.
Just say that. You're not Shakespeare. You're not the bard, George Lucas. You're not. You're not good at dialogue.
A huge thing that I hated with Padme in these last 2 movies is, like, how unbadass she became. Yeah, she had that Coliseum thing.
That seemed almost like it was just apologizing to her.
Yeah.
It was just like, yeah, we'll give you this, I guess.
Yeah, like, she had the Coliseum thing, and then it just straight ripped her away, and she just became about her man, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it was just sad to see, because she was really cool. I mean, Leia, same way with Leia, but Leia maintained badassness, I feel like, for the most part. And with Padme, it just kind of got ripped away and just became shadowed by Anakin.
I only have a couple more things to say about this. I want to get into episode 3.
Yeah, then I'll plow through my bullet points that are all...
The last thing I want to say is in the Count Dooku fight with Obi-Wan and Anakin, he gives them an ultimatum. But at the time he gives them an ultimatum, there is no sign that he is doing better than them at the fight. Yeah. Like, he's just like... It makes it so not badass. Like, maybe if you're a child, it seems like a badass line. But it's just like they're fighting pretty equally. It's like, you have 2 choices. Either come with me, enjoy the dark, or whatever. I forget what the ultimatum is. But it's just like, they are equaling you in power. What leg do you have to stand on in this ultimatum? It didn't make any sense. It's just trying to be badass for the sake of being badass, and it just failed miserably. Yeah.
All right, let me crank through these, I guess. Yeah. I'll try to be faster than the last time. First moments of the movie. Hey, we're safe. Fucking explosion. I thought that was absolutely hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
I have 3 bullet points that are like basically back to back about the characters. Annie's a sassy little thing. Annie's a cranky little thing. Mm-hmm. Obi-Wan is so baby girl Jesus.
I'm fat
space,
girl Jesus,
space
apparently.
Jesus. I'm sorry. Obi-Wan and Padme's captains acting like parents letting go of their kids on a date. Oh, my child. When he had to go on a mission to protect her, they're like, oh, yeah, look at us. We're just parents. I feel like children shouldn't be involved for a conversation about a mole in the ranks erasing files. When Obi-Wan went to Yoda while he was teaching the younglings some fucking deflection shit.
Younglings is a stupid word.
Is a terrible word. So did Palpatine act as Jedi for Sifu Dyas ordering all the clones? Is that what I was getting out of all that? Because Sifu Dyas or Dias, whatever it was, had died.
I don't like seafood.
I love it. I had a lot of it this week. So I'm assuming Palpatine's the one that ordered the clones. They don't really say that he actually did, but I'm assuming he did. I don't know.
I think that becomes more clear in episode 3.
Yeah. Annie's not to be trusted around your drink. Hates sand but grew up on a planet with sand, or was it dirt?
It was sand.
Yeah.
I mean, that you could argue that's why he hates sand, but...
Could be, but he never mentioned it before. It just happened to be. Now it's a meme. The CGI was better than I remember, besides the Annie rode the giant tick. I think that was just the beginning of the movie, and then it got worse. So I wrote all these bullets in, like, as I was watching the movie. It got worse. Sorry, Glenn. It got worse. I found that Lucas tries to write romance seeds between... Yep, I already said that. Sorry. I know this is an age where we started to use CGI more and more, but I wish we could have just kept a lot of things practical.
Puppets look better than CGI.
I
don't care if their masks look like shit.
It was
looks
just
better than CGI.
so overused. Like, there's some things that you could have done. Like, people walking. You could have just had people walking. Mm-hmm. Instead, it was CGI. That was such a waste of money. Joel Edgerton! I want to know what happened in between the first movie and this one that knocks such a screw loose out of Anakin. Mm-hmm. It just... 180.
It tries to make it seem like his mother was the reason, his mother dying.
Yeah.
But he was definitely fucked up before that.
Yeah, before that, he's so enraged with jealousy, and it never felt like between the characters. I mean, when we didn't see them, it never felt like Obi-Wan was like doing things to make him jealous. I think he was just being a teacher. He was just being an asshole. Anakin. He was just being an asshole just to be an asshole. Sorry, moving on. Dooku confuses me. Is he basically an anti-hero? Is he a Sith? Because there can only be 2 Siths at a time. If Dooku betrayed the Jedi so long ago and turned to the dark side, how can the Sith be at the same time as Maul? We kind of talked about that already. It just doesn't make sense. I love sassy Obi-Wan.
Hello there.
Hello there.
That's in 3.
Yeah.
That's in 3, though.
My favorite thing about these movies is the battles with the clones. That was a huge thing. The clones were the coolest fucking thing to me. Scout troopers are still my favorite, but the clones armors, the different colors and textures and shit. Oh my god. I get that they have an army of clones, but where did all the warships and shit come from? They just had them.
Yep.
Why can't Anakin have one fucking lightsaber without letting it go or like getting it lost or destroyed? Yoda versus Dooku is basically a dick force measuring contest. Lord Tyrannus is such a cool name.
Also, Yoda and Count Dooku fighting, Yoda's moves just felt like someone button mashing on a video game.
And I thought I was bugging out, but on the version that I watched, you can hardly tell that Anakin actually loses his arm. Like, the scene that I watched is Dooku like chops off what looks like his arm, but in the very next scene, it was just like the lightsaber chopped in half, but they never show his hand being cut off or anything. That confused the fuck out of me because I mean,
they show him laying there without an arm.
Yeah, but I don't know. They show bodies being chopped in half. I just got so confused. Like, so did they actually chop off his arm, or am I going crazy? He never reacted to it.
Yeah.
So that was my last bullet point. Sorry. Let's move on.
It's all right. Let's move on to Revenge of the Sith.
Every single Jedi is now an enemy of the Republic. Do what must be done. Do not hesitate. Show no mercy.
Who could have done this?
Twisted by the dark side, young Skywalker has become.
I feel so helpless.
You were the chosen one!
3 years into the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi pursues a new threat while Anakin Skywalker is lured by the Chancellor Palpatine into a sinister plot to rule the galaxy.
Yes, directed by George Lucas, written by George Lucas, John Ostrander, and Jan Duursema. It is no mystery to me why the more writers he adds, the better the dialogue gets. Starring Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman, Ewan McGregor, Samuel L. Jackson, Ian McDiarmid, Jimmy Smits, and many others. Third in the one. I actually realized while watching this, I said when it was picked last week that I had only seen Attack of the Clones once in theaters. I have also only seen this before this once in theaters, and I didn't realize that until watching it. I was like, I haven't watched this because I have no memory of this place, to quote Lord of the Rings, a superior saga. But yeah, it's... I admit it's the best one of the prequel trilogy. Not my favorite, but it is significantly better quality-wise than Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. The thing that bugged me the most about it, and again, this goes back to the lore, the novelizations, the all of that bullshit, is the fact that General Grievous coughs. Makes no sense. I was reading that it was George Lucas's way of showing that he is not completely robot. He has some human aspects to him.
He's
but
still carbon based on the inside.
His I believe, I could be wrong, I did not see any lungs, and his vocal cord was digital. So it makes no fucking sense for him to cough, regardless of if he is...
Yeah,
he had no respiratory system.
He had a jar with a heart, and his face was real inside that helmet. That was pretty much...
He has no respiratory system to make him cough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just stupid that he coughs. And it's distracting, honestly, in my opinion. Other than that, I like the design of General Grievous, and I like the way he acts other than the coughing. I wish that they had him do something else that kind of made him kind of... badass like that, or creepy, but it just kind of distracted more, and I was just like, what the fuck are we doing, George? What are we doing?
He's got a really good character design, obviously, besides the coughing. He's really cool. I kind of wish he did more in this movie, but I mean, it's still iconic. Not nearly as good to me as Django or which I don't know, we didn't even talk about in that last movie, which was kind of upsetting how fast that happened. But not as iconic as the other two, but definitely he's up there for sure. He's cool. He's cool shit.
Well, I think he's a cool design, but overall a disappointing villain because he gets beat really quickly.
Yep.
And he never feels like a danger. That's kind of another nitpick I have. Other than like Darth Vader, Darth Maul, Count Dooku never feels like a threat, really. None of the minions, even in the original trilogy, never feel like a threat. Like none of the stormtroopers, none of the battle droids in 1 and 2 feel like a threat. The only time that it starts to feel like a threat is in this, when the clones are controlled by Emperor Palpatine and execute Order 66.
Order 66.
Yeah, that's the first time that the minions of the dark side feel dangerous in any capacity.
Well, man, not even killing Qui-Gon, huh?
Darth Maul is not a minion. When I say minion, I mean like the battle droids, the stormtroopers. He's a Sith.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think
technically, Dooku is as well.
but he doesn't feel dangerous. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The minions never feel
I
dangerous. The Siths are
I
like
understand.
2 for 4 or whatever it is.
I think Maul absolutely wiped the floor, and then Dooku, he at least won the first battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin, so it kind of felt like he was a force. But
Did he really? He ran. I guess against. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
Against Obi-Wan and Anakin.
And then
yeah.
Yoda showed up and saved their asses.
Yeah, you're right.
Then, so to me, I think the flaw there is that Dooku didn't kill anybody. Dooku wasn't necessarily trying to be a Sith in any way. He was trying to save the Jedi in a way, at least from what he was trying to save it, but not. He was doing it for self purposes. But he didn't kill anybody, so there was no danger. It felt like obviously he was just fighting off Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then Grievous didn't kill anybody either. He didn't fucking hurt anybody. Yeah, there might have been some random people, but he didn't do anything substantial to anybody to make him feel any type of dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing. Maul was the coolest one because he actually did something to a major character.
Yeah, and he felt dangerous. Like he was a presence.
With like I was saying with Dooku earlier and the hand cutting off, I didn't feel danger because they didn't even show a reaction to him cutting off his fucking hand. Luke, when he got his hand chopped off by Vader, did this whole thing.
Yeah.
But they just cut away to it and him no reaction, and Anakin just kept going, which badass, commend you for doing that, but I don't know. It takes away from the moment.
Yeah. I always have to talk about the dialogue in these.
Yeah.
The dialogue for the most part is better than 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But some of the bad lines in it are the worst that the trilogy has ever heard. There's a scene where Anakin's looking at Padme, and he's oh my god, what is it? He says you're beautiful. She says it's only because I'm so in love with you. And he says,
dude,
no,
I
because
have
I'm
that
so
too.
in love with you. It's like shut the fuck up.
I have it as written down. Oh, you're so beautiful. I'm so in love with you. No, I am.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
And then
of course
stupid.
This is where the Yoda-isms get really out of control. I hope right you are. What? A prophecy that misread could have been.
Yeah.
George, you're high. Pot wasn't legal back then in California. How is this happening? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, the dialogue, while overall better, is just the bad parts are so much worse than the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we talked about it already. Only Sith deal with absolutes, which is in itself an absolute, and everything that the Jedi say are absolutes. He absolutely can't sit in on the council as a master.
He tried to. When I talk about the opening sequence to this, because I thought it was really cool, two of my dots kind of coincide with each other here. First one being, I see where the budget went from the first two movies, because they really upped the game with the CGI and shit in this and the fights and all that. So they definitely put their budget into this one. But that first opening in the sequence of like the starships fighting and shit like that, I thought it was really fucking awesome. But the only thing that took it away is how in sync Obi-Wan and Anakin were with their flight flips and tricks. Just fly. Why? They're maneuvering like crazy, just flying. I was like, come on. And they were so in sync, like they were doing the same moves. Like Obi-Wan doesn't even like flying. He doesn't do all these flippy shit like Anakin does. It just bothered me. It just drove me crazy. But I think this whole sequence of the whole battle up there was really, really awesome to look at. And then they went on badass mode.
I don't know. I think the biggest crime with episodes one, this solves the biggest crime with episodes 1 and 2, which is that episodes 1 and 2 have moments that are really boring. Where this is kind of like well paced throughout, and again, still not my favorite, but it is better made, higher budget, like you said. They actually have real fucking sets at times, which I never thought would be something hard to come by. But it moves along, even though it's the longest in the trilogy. It moves on pretty quickly and doesn't really have any, at least super noticeable boring scenes. If
there were, it was mostly, I think, in the beginning, because after maybe the first third, it picks up and it kind of just doesn't stop. It just kind of keeps going.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the biggest problem with this one, the death of Anakin's mother does not seem to be enough to justify his obvious mental illness.
Yeah. So I'm actually glad you brought this up, because I had forgot.
And he kind of just seems like a fucking idiot because of all of it. Like, he's just And I know that that's the point. He's supposed to be, just an edgelord who doesn't listen to anyone, but it's so stupid. It makes it takes what could have been the best sci-fi story ever told and makes it lackluster. It's like, it's okay.
So I was definitely thinking about this a lot. And you were correct 100%. What I hope for, like, justifying his actions on just being such a moody bitch about death and all that is that either I wish maybe Qui-Gon didn't die in the first one, so maybe he dies in the second one, and then his mother dies in the third one, or like, so that, like, they build up those deaths more. They kind of branch them out instead of just like a death.
Who dies in the second one? I'm sorry, I wasn't.
His mother dies in the second one,
and then
and then maybe somebody dies. So, like, maybe Qui-Gon dies in the second one. It kind of branches out his story a little bit more in their relationship, and then it had a more impact on Anakin's, life. And then obviously his mother dies as well. Maybe, I don't know, there's definitely ways they could have done it, or at least add another person in there that died that was somewhat close to him. Because, like,
I mean, Padme dies, but he's already on the dark side by that.
Well,
that happens.
That time it's way past the brink. And like, that's the one that, like, puts the needle in the or nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
But there needed to be somebody else there.
Yeah. And he wasn't even present for Qui-Gon's death.
Yeah,
like,
Qui-Gon,
I feel like
there was
if he was
no
present for
reaction
Qui-Gon's
to that.
death, I feel like.
And that's why I'm saying he should have died in the second one, branched out his story a little bit more.
Or at the very least in the first one, not have
been there for
Anakin go not have Anakin fly away with the like, there's no need other than to show he's a good pilot, which we already know. I lost my video, so I'm going to be a frozen picture the rest of this time. There's no need at all for him to go with the rest of the pilots, because we already know he's a good pilot from the pod racing. And so it would have been much more impactful if he is with somehow Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon dies. And then with his mom dying, they could have done more with that. And
the worst part of the Qui-Gon thing is he didn't react to Qui-Gon's death. It was this. Well, what's going to happen with me now?
Yeah, it
Not
was very
like, oh my God, this man was so good to me.
Yeah.
That was kind of gross to say, but
yes, Daddy Qui-Gon.
But yeah, I mean, there had to be another death there, or make Qui-Gon's death more impactful to justify him being so fucking angry about death all the time.
Show when he's a kid, he's a little angel.
Mm-hmm.
Show that he's already a little fucked up from being a slave as a kid.
Yeah.
Because that's how serial killers are. That's how anyone who has ever abused power or done something evil, it starts in their childhood. They're abused as a child, and then it's like written. It's convenient how it happens.
Or maybe even like just him reacting to some way of like finding out that Obi-Wan died.
Yeah.
Like, he knows that Obi-Wan's going to die because of Order 66, but like maybe make it some way impactful that it was like a really fucking shitty death, and he just maybe, I don't know. There was something there that could have justified him pushing so hard.
It's almost there. It's almost there, but it kind of falls flat ultimately. And
speaking
I
of
agree.
Obi-Wan though, this always pissed me off so much with all these, the second and the third one, is how much shit Anakin talks about Obi-Wan behind his back, and then once he's face to face, he's like, Master, it's been so good, us and our friendship, and I appreciate everything, and I apologize for my shortcomings and how rude I've been. Like, that drives me nuts. Like, to anybody else's face, he's like, Obi-Wan's just jealous of me. He hates to see me progress or anything like that. And then once he's like actually in his face, he's like, hey man, how you doing? I love you.
Yeah.
You're my best friend.
He's definitely
kisses his beard.
Yeah, he's definitely two-faced in that sense, which might have been intentional, but it just kind of comes off as clunky and awkward.
I mean, I think the part where it feels like he actually wasn't two-faced is their actual last conversation before he switches to the dark side, is where he's like, Master, I just want to let you know that, you know, I've been arrogant, I've been rude, I've been just a piece of shit, and I'm sorry, and I want to apologize to you. You are a great master, and I hope to be as good as you one day. And then he's like, and then Obi-Wan's like, Anakin, I am proud of you. In every sort of, like, they had like the most genuine conversation, and it was the last conversation they had as like two kind of clear-minded people. And that was really cool. And then obviously the you know what happened after that.
Yeah.
Shit kind of got a little crazy.
Shit got a little crazy.
A little crazy.
One thing that I couldn't stop laughing at this is that it's so clear to me that George Lucas has no idea what a pregnant woman looks like. And that it just kind of... She runs fast when she's super pregnant, and then like the size of her belly changes from scene to scene.
I had to look that up too. I'm like, how far along was she? Apparently she was like... Now, I'm sorry, I made any Star Wars fans, I looked it up very quick. Apparently she was already like 5 months pregnant or some shit. So like when she told Anakin, she already had the bump and everything.
Well, no, I know that, but like it's... when you looked it up, did it say how?
So what I assume is he knocked her up, and then he went on that whatever mission, and he was gone for like 5 months, and then that's when she told him she was pregnant. And then from there, I don't know what the span of time is. I have no idea.
Yeah, but like in the scene on the volcano planet, her belly is pretty big, and then the next scene it's small.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then
I couldn't tell you.
she still has a pretty big bump when she's dead and the twins have been taken out. That's not how bellies work. It's not just like a hardened stone. It's just I don't know. It just it drove me crazy. I mean, granted, I also just had a wife who was pregnant for a bit, so it's I don't know. My brain's fried at this point from watching these movies and then talking about it for so long.
So
the red eyes when he turns evil is super stupid.
I actually genuinely like that feature.
Yeah. Okay.
Between him and Palpatine too.
Okay.
I forget what color eyes Maul had. I kind of like the fact that they start doing dark side in their eyes. It was more of like a yellow, I think, or orange. I like that they kind of change with the dark side. That's a personal thing. I understand that you don't. It's a personal preference. I thought it was cool.
I think it's too goofy.
Well, good news for you is Vader's got a fucking mask on his whole life.
Yeah, good job. Good job. I mean, it made sense when the Emperor was, because he was electrocuted and stuff. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
I was going to
say. There's a reason behind it.
You got to think, man. It's the Metachlorians.
The Metachlorians. Those stupid things. But yeah, I mean, this also has great music from the great John Williams. The Battle of the Heroes, when Order 66 is executed. It's phenomenal.
Yes.
And I love that song. And I kind of wish they spent more time showing what the other Jedis were doing, because seeing them slain was pretty impactful.
Yep.
Getting to know them more beforehand would have made it even more so.
Especially if they said what they were just doing on different planets.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously
they had the general coverage of a war.
Yeah.
Great, cool, whatever. That doesn't mean anything. There's wars everywhere all the time. But yeah,
like we knew what Obi-Wan and Anakin were doing through the council, and what Windu and Yoda were going to do. But they didn't talk about what all the other guys were going to do at that council. So like they all separated ways, but like what were the rest of it would have been cool to at least know what the fuck everybody was doing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's
now there's TV shows now explaining what a lot of that is, and like showing like I don't know, the Bad Batch and Clone Wars and all that stuff.
Yeah,
like they were saying that, but again, it doesn't matter if we didn't watch those things.
Yeah, it took a while to come out and tell us what was happening. But I mean, I guess that's just the nature of the beast here. But yeah, I thought that scene was really well done. The aliens that have like the weird tentacles on their heads, they're usually women. Why do they always make them hot? That's what I want to know.
I can tell you how. It's Lucas's idea.
Yeah, he's obviously got a thing for for those ladies. But yeah, every time that one of them's on, I'm just like, she's just wearing like the most form-fitting clothing. In the Andor series? Did you ever watch the Andor series?
I watched most of it. Yeah.
The one that they have in that is like the hottest character in the entire thing. It's just that entire species of aliens, the women are just like,
just gotta be hot, man.
Yeah, they gotta be hot. They gotta be hot. But yeah, really enjoyed rewatching this. Kind of wish I had rewatched it before, because like I said, I'd only seen it in the theater the one time.
Yeah, I had seen it a few times, the whole series. Mainly the last time was 2016. I had showed somebody who hadn't really watched them before, the series. Revenge of the Sith, this is going to be a hot take because I haven't seen the originals in so long. Might be my favorite Star Wars movie, at least from the first and second trilogy.
I mean, favorite is different from best, so I don't think that's so much of a hot take.
Yeah. Well, people don't care for opinions. They're like, did you say your opinion? No!
That's especially Star Wars fans. We know they are level-headed people.
I haven't seen the original in a while. I mean, Rogue One's a fucking fantastic movie.
Rogue One is my favorite.
There is no denying that to an extent. That's probably the best made, for sure, Star Wars movie. But I think this one, as far as it goes, to me, is probably my favorite. It's got the best fights. It's got the best settings. The one thing I'll give this fucking movie, it's got, or I'll say the whole series here, like the prequels, they've got fucking amazing settings. They're so iconic. And it might just be because I played the Battlefront game and like you could play all of these different planets and shit. Yeah. But like they're just so iconic to me. And they did such a good job creating so many different locations to like have these cool ass fights and all this. Yeah, man. I don't know. This one specifically just does things for me. Especially when Anakin kills the younglings.
Yeah, that scene was pretty...
And Obi-Wan has to try to hold his composure saying it.
Yeah.
And he also killed the younglings.
Yeah, it's a stupid word.
It's terrible.
I think while watching this, another problem I had, and this is nitpicking, I fully admit that, is that every planet only has one ecosystem.
Yeah.
and it's like the planet, like Tatooine's entirely is a desert.
Yeah.
Naboo is entirely like tropic, with jungle and waters and all that. And
Naboo was the giant city, wasn't it?
No, that's Coruscant.
No, yeah, right. You're right.
Coruscant is an entire city. It's just a city. Naboo
is where Padme's home planet is, and
Correct.
she takes Anakin. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I understand why they do it. It's,
Mustafar's all volcano.
Yeah, it's nitpicking, but it is. I would like to see a little more diversity.
Yeah,
and that.
That's the thing.
Also, it's really stupid when they decide to hide Darth Vader's kids to hide them with one of his stepbrothers.
Well, first off, I'm glad you brought that up because hide one of them with a member of the Senate, where the Emperor takes most of his meetings.
Yeah.
So, and then the other one with family members of Darth Vader,
horrible places
who he has met.
Yeah.
And has been at location. I don't know.
I mean, the Emperor is not going to tell Vader of his kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a whole thing. But overall, this one's decent. Quality wise is better than 1 and 2. I still like 1 more, just mainly because of nostalgia.
Understand.
And I don't like this one enough to be like, oh yeah, I like this one so much. Rogue One is definitely the best in my opinion. And then after that, obviously Empire Strikes Back. But I don't really have too much else to say. It was kind of, as much as I dreaded it going into it, I kind of enjoyed rewatching the prequels, as bad as they might be.
You want me to plow through these bullets real quick?
Yeah.
I'll try to make it fast, future Mike. I know we know Palpatine is Darth Sidious, but Anakin is avoiding all of the red flags that he is just plainly giving.
Hell yeah.
That was in the beginning of the movie.
Hell yeah.
And as I'm watching the prequels, I started to see an uptick in the prequel memes, which was amazing for me because they were always hilarious. Rewatching these really makes me want to play the Battlefront games, like I said multiple times, and also watch the Clone Wars, Bad Batch, and kind of all the in-between stuff of this and the original series.
You got to watch Andor.
I have watched Andor. Not fully, but not completely.
You got to finish it. It's honestly, in my opinion,
I'd have to
other than
rewatch
Rogue One, the best thing that they've
I'd
made.
have to rewatch the whole thing at this point because I forget.
Yeah.
I already talked about the one with Obi and Annie talking to each other for the last time before he actually got corrupted. God forbid any of the fucking Jedi hold on to their lightsabers or don't get them broken. All of them, just without a care.
It's a crutch. It's a crutch that George Lucas uses when he's writing.
It's fucking insane. It drives me nuts. What I love about the fight sequences in this is when they're CGI, at least they make them look like super agile, like the characters, like how Jedi usually move and everything. But when it pans kind of back to the actual actors, they're kind of just like deflecting blade, like just like kids playing with toy swords. That kind of drove me nuts, but it's a super nitpick. Anakin's super hypocritical when talking to Mace Windu. We don't kill him. It's not the Jedi way.
Kills him.
Okay, guy. How the fuck did Viceroy survive as long as he did is beyond me. I love how Obi-Wan just stands there when Anakin sees him after talking to Padme. He's just like, hello there. Fucking amazing. Hayden's delivery for liar is so good.
Yeah, when he's angry, he's really good.
In this movie, he stepped it the fuck up.
Yeah, he really did.
And I was saying the next bullet here, Hayden and Ewan's performances on Mustafar is just top tier. Like they both just stepped it up big time. Definitely for me, my favorite fight in the series is Obi-Wan versus Anakin on Mustafar. I'd probably have to rewatch a couple of the other fights that exist that weren't in the prequels, but that is definitely the best one in the prequels.
Yeah.
even Yoda isn't safe from losing a fucking lightsaber. And this is my last bullet. I think the worst thing about watching these is that I want to watch. Yeah, okay, sorry. I already said that. I want to rewatch kind of everything, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but you know, this did kind of reignite wanting to see a lot of this stuff again.
When it's good, it's really good.
Yeah,
but when it's bad, it's really bad. And that's the thing with whenever all the movies that George Lucas wrote and directed, the problem is you can tell when the actors don't believe in what they're saying.
Yeah.
Like the scenes that they believe are really strong, they give their all. And the things that they think are really weak, they kind of phone it in. And it's the director's job to really be like, hey, this is your motivation. This is what's going on, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
People really like to laugh when the directors, I forget who said it. There's an actor. If I can find it, I'll put a text up here.
Hell yeah.
There's an actor who said, what is my motivation? And the motivation was it's the words on the page or something like that. It's like, that's a horrible direction. Like, that's a guy who doesn't feel like explaining his own process. And that is horrible because, you might write something and interpret it one way and someone else interprets it another way. So that's why you got to have these discussions. And people love to make fun of actors for that. But it's like, it's a valid question.
You want to get to that point emotionally.
Like, am I saying this because I'm angry? Or am I saying this because I'm sarcastic? Am I saying this because of that? To say, it's the words written on the page.
Yeah.
Like, well, obviously, if they're asking you that, if they're asking you what the motivation is, your writing is not as strong as you think it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's George Lucas's whole. He's not the one that said that, just to be clear. I'm using a story from another writer-director to talk about George Lucas's writing and all that. And I think for the most part, people were just too afraid, for whatever reason, to ask George Lucas for more clarity on what was going on. Because the scenes that they don't believe in, you can tell they do not believe in it.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest problem. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say.
I think that's honestly probably about it.
Yes.
I mean,
so
we talked
that
about a fucking lot.
Yeah, we talked for an hour and a half on those things, but that does it for the reviews of the Star Wars prequels. That brings us to the Judgment. As always, needs to be a unanimous decision whether it goes to the KFR shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. Glenn, this was Streaming Roulette. Heads or tails?
Tails.
Tails. Heads, so I get to go first. So I think, do these go on? That is the real question. I am going to say, I'm between only putting 1 and 3 on, or none of them at all.
I was about to say I'm gonna do it singularly.
Okay, well I'll do that then too. Because if they had to be clumped together, I would say not at all, because you don't need them to enjoy the rest of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And they're too inconsistent. But if we're going with one, I would say does go on the shelf because Darth Maul is the best villain in all of Star Wars. I don't care about Darth Vader. I mean, I do care about Darth Vader, but Darth Maul is so much cooler.
Yep.
In design, at least. Obviously, we didn't get to learn about him enough to know for sure if he's better than Darth Vader.
Until series after, and then we didn't.
Which I haven't watched because I have time. But I would say 1 goes on the shelf. 2 is just so completely pointless. You don't need a whole movie to show that Anakin is simping for Padme and Padme simping for Anakin, and ignoring all the red flags.
Yep.
I think 2 is just a waste of time. From what I hear, the Clone Wars is pretty good. You could probably skip 2 and just watch the Clone Wars. And for 3, I would say it does go on because it is the best made one. So 1 and 3 go on. 2 is not for me personally. And yeah, I'm sticking by that.
Honestly, pretty much the same. 1 is lucky because if it didn't have Darth Maul and Qui-Gon, fuck that movie. Those
agree.
2 literally saved that movie.
Yeah. And they both died. Well, Darth Maul didn't really die, but we know about that.
2, there's just not much there to be salvageable for anything towards the shelf. 3, I think it's definitely the most well made of the 3. Most enjoyable, like you said, that's up in the air. At least not for me. I know which one's the most enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
But
enjoyable and best are different.
Yes. So yeah, 1, yes. 2, no. 3, yes. And also something that I fucking remember that somebody pointed out is that all the Star Wars movies all have the wrong names. And it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Ever since somebody pointed out, I can't not see that.
So episodes 1 and 3 go on the list. Episode 2 does not. I'm actually surprised that we agree
wholeheartedly. The Force was with us.
Yes. But that does it for our judgment, and that brings us to next episode's assignment. It is my turn to pick, and as we know, I have a big list of movies, and I'm going to have Glenn pick a number between 1 and 49.
Ooh, give me number 27.
27. Okay, let me just do math in my head real quick. Lars and the Real Girl.
Where's your girlfriend?
I don't have one.
Are you gay?
No.
Give this to somebody nice.
Mr. Sunshine. That new girl's kind of cute, huh?
Something's going on with him. I'm worried.
Maybe he wants to be left alone.
That's not what he wants.
Hey, I have a visitor.
Where did you meet this person?
I met her on the internet.
Yeah, well, everybody's doing that now.
You know, Bianca's a missionary.
My little brother is crazy, right? I mean, he's crazy.
If I may, he appears to have a delusion.
What the hell is he doing with a delusion?
She loves kids.
Fantastic. When will it be over?
When he doesn't need it anymore.
Are you not gonna go to work today, Gus?
I don't feel good.
Well, Bianca could help you. You know, she has nurses training.
Ooh.
Yes. So we're going to be watching Lars and the Real Girl. Have you seen this?
It's with my
Ryan
man Ryan
Goosebaby?
Goosling, right? Yeah.
Ryan Goosebaby, yeah.
I've seen it when it was first on Netflix so long ago.
So this is going to be on Pluto TV, Roku channel, Tubi. You could also rent it if you wish. And it's also on MGM Plus if you have that. We do not have that, though. A delusional young man strikes up an unconventional relationship with a doll he finds on the internet. Spoiler alert, it's a sex doll. Directed by Craig Gillespie, written by Nancy Oliver, starring Ryan Gosling, Emily Mortimer, Paul Schneider, Kelly Garner, Doug Lennox, and many others. Patricia Clarkson's in there. And like I said, this is going to be on Tubi, Roku, and Pluto. It is a 70 Metacritic score and 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb. So yeah, Lars and the Real Girl.
Hell yeah, man! We're gonna get some Ryan Goosebaby up
Ryan
on that sex
Goosebaby.
doll.
It's been a long time since I've watched this one, so I'm curious to see how it holds up. But yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that does it for this episode. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. As always, you can check out our website at www.keystonefilmreview.com. On Instagram, we're Keystone_Film_Review. Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, if TikTok's still around. Who knows? Keystone Film Review. And on Letterboxd, I am Mike, KFR.
I am Glen, KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we go from revenging the Sith to Sithing the sex doll. No.
Yeah, we will.
No.
Comment down below all the shit that we got wrong. Please.
Yes, but please, just know we're stupid.
Yep. Big dum-dums.
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody.
And may the Force be with you.
May the 4th be with you.